helping my mother in her beauty shop. My mother owned a beauty shop up in Mount Vernon. And there was this older woman who was considered one of the elders in the town. And I didn't know her personally, but I was looking in the mirror. And every time I looked at the mirror, I could see her behind me. And she was staring at me. She just kept looking at me. Every time I looked at her, she kept giving me these strange looks. So she finally took the dryer off her head and she said something I'll never forget. First of all, she said, somebody give me a piece of paper. Give me a piece of paper. She said, young boy, I have a prophecy, a spiritual prophecy. She said, you are going to travel the world and speak to millions of people. I began at Fordham University as a pre-med student. I took a course called cardiac morphogenesis. I couldn't read it. I couldn't say it. I sure couldn't pass it. So then I decided to go into pre-law, then journalism. And with no academic focus, my grades took off in their own direction. I was a 1.8 GPA one semester, and the university very politely suggested that it might be better to take some time off. I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. Fail big. You will fail at some point in your life. Accept it. You will lose. You will embarrass yourself. You will suck at something. There's no doubt about it. In the acting business, you fail all the time. Early on in my career, I auditioned for a part in a Broadway musical. Perfect role for me, I thought. So I'm in the wings. I'm about to go on stage, but the guy in front of me, he's singing like Pavarotti, and I'm just shrinking. I'm getting smaller and smaller. So they say, "Oh, thank you very much, and you'll be hearing from us." So I come out with my little sheet music, and so I assumed I didn't get the job. But the next part of the audition, he called me back. The next part of the audition is the acting part of the audition. So I'm like, hey, okay, maybe I can't sing, but I know I can act. So they pair me with this guy. And musical theater is big, so they can reach everyone all the way in the back of the stadium. And I'm more from a realistic, naturalistic kind of acting where you actually talk to the person next to you. So I don't know what my line was. My line was, well, hand me the cup. And his line was, well, I will hand you the cup, my dear. The cup will be there to be handed to you. I didn't get the job. But here's the thing. I didn't quit. I didn't fall back. I walked out of there to prepare for the next audition, and the next audition, and the next audition. I prayed. I prayed. And I prayed. But I continued to fail. But it didn't matter, because you know what? There's an old saying, you hang around the barbershop, and sooner or later you're going to get a haircut. So you will catch a break, and I did catch a break. Last year, I did a play called Fences on Broadway. So someone talked about it. Won the Tony Award. But here's the kicker. It was at the Court Theater. It was at the same theater that I failed that first audition 30 years prior. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept. having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. The point is, every graduate here today has the training and the talent to succeed.
Evening, guys. I'll stop it there. Some of the stuff you may have seen before I've talked about. But yeah, this is pretty much what I listen to. A lot of it seems, excuse the language, like bullshit. You're thinking, well, why is he talking about that? Why is he talking about this? It does seem very, very, very relevant. And if you put it into context, it does fit into what we're doing, I believe anyway. So this evening, I won't be speaking that much. We've got Peter, which is very, very highly qualified in psychology. I believe so. I think that's his title. So he obviously knows a lot more about the brain, if you like, than me, and the mindset stuff. I will start off just slightly going through a few things, and I'll pass you over to him. So I've done this on purpose because everybody should have their why. So I've left my why in every time, every week. You're going to see it. If you get bored of it, tough shit. I want to see it. I like it because that's what I'm going to get. This is what I'm going to achieve. So you need to have goals as well. You need to write them down, whether it's the daily goal, a weekly goal, a yearly goal, whatever you want. Pay off debt. If you want to lose weight, do something about it. It's literally all down to you. So it's all down to the mindset. So this is what I want. I'll read a few of them off. Buy big cars, the nice car, buy a house, big cars. I've not got it behind me tonight because it's apparently too dangerous for my little boy that's just been born last week. So there's drawing pins in it. So my missus is like, that's got to come down. I've got to hang it up somewhere. I have to find a place for it. But yeah, behind me there was a vision board. So there was £150,000 watch on there, and obviously a lot of us what we're doing is for the money. Yeah. So this one I want to touch on. Can everybody fill me in on that? What's the catchphrase? Seeing it from. If anybody can finish me off. Anybody? I'll pick on somebody. Just unmute yourself.
Both sides.
Yeah, that's one possibility. Both sides. Anything else?
Someone else's perspective.
Yeah, that's the main one I see it as is a viewpoint, seeing it from two different viewpoints. Yeah, so why I put it in there is basically because I've noticed a lot of us in the group are seeing other things that other people are doing. Stick to your journey. Some people will be posting, so I've been told, some people are growing their accounts by 7, 8, 9, 10, if not 15, 20% a day, and then blowing it because they're over trading. And then what do? You start moaning. I'm not picking on nobody. I don't even know who it is. I've just been told. So if you're growing, why do you want to spoil it all? Which is going to bring me on to this. I see trading like a book. Yeah. I know some clever clogs somewhere will able to write a book in a day or a week, whatever. But typically to me, to write a book, I would have to spend about a good year probably to do it, because each page is like every day that we trade. That's how I see it. So you're creating a book about your trading, and that's what you should be doing. That's how I see it. Yeah. So if we're taking 3, 4, 5 trades a day, which that's all we typically should be doing, then why do we need to do any more? So if you're gonna have 1 page per day, it's fine because it works. You can cope with that. But you start putting 6, 7, 8 pages into the book, the content and the storyline of the book, to me, is gonna get pretty shit. You're gonna get somebody's unmuted. Whoever's muted, can you mind muting yourself, guys? You're just gonna get off track. Yeah. So On the right there, you can see trading is like driving a car. You're thinking, where the hell is this guy going with this? So the middle point, knowing when to stop. So when we drive a car and we come to a junction, we know exactly when to start hitting the brakes. Why can't you do it with your trading? Because it's greed. We're all greedy. It's built into us. We're generally greed. Don't get me wrong, I'll put my hands up. I've been there, I've done it, but I've been able to change. How? With a good mentor and going on to stuff like this and listening to different mindset stuff. I hate books. I think I've told you last week. So I get everything on audio. The other day I was in the airport, I posted it in the group. I had a 4-hour airport trip. I've got a taxi business, by the way, for people who don't know. So I was doing an airport job. What did I do? I could have just driven for 2 hours there, 2 hours back, listening to Radio 1. But I got this, my headpiece connected to my phone. The customers don't know any different. They don't give a shit. I left Radio 1 on for them, but my phone was connected to my earpiece. I was just driving along, listening to my mindset stuff. So you've got to take advantage where you can. So trading is like cooking, yeah? Cooking some food. So are we going to get our, I don't really know how we all eat steak, but mine's pretty much medium. Are we going to stop cooking at medium, or we're going to fucking burn it? So it's the same as trading. Are you going to stop at medium at 3%, 4%, 5% growth? Or are you going to carry on to push to 15% and possibly blow your account, or lose 10, 20% of your account? Then you're going to get pissed off. It's just a cycle. You've got to know when to stop. That's the hardest part. Eating or drinking, possibly. I don't really drink, so maybe a lot of you will drink me, will be able to drink me under the table when we hopefully meet sometime. I don't know when, because it's COVID bullshit, but to me, 6, 7 pints, I know when to stop. If I carry on, I'm going to be paralytic on the floor, vomiting. You've got to know your limits. Yeah. I've just had a fucking massive burger tonight. Some of you may have seen it on my Facebook, if you're friends with me. Had a massive burger tonight and loads of chips. That was me, that's done. And she said to me, do you want pudding? I said, no, I can't. Why do you want to force yourself? Stop forcing it. It's a journey. Enjoy it, embrace it. Just relax. Go with the flow. Stop pushing it's never going to happen. The more you push it. So I was taking, when I first started, it was 14 months ago in Forex now, I was taking about 7 to 8 Forex trades per day. And I couldn't get my head around it. I was winning and losing, winning and losing, win, and then bang, big loss. Thinking, Jesus Christ, what was going on here? I was banging onto my mentors, this shit doesn't work. He said to me, you're over trading. I went down to 3 trades a week. And I did more growth in a week than I ever did it was about four months. Just because you just cherry pick the ones that you want, pick them out, concentrate on that trade. That's all you got to do. Yeah, we all know about the compound effect. It works. So this is going to be my last slide. I won't keep you too long because I want to pass over to Peter. So if you're going to take anything from tonight, please, I would like all of you, or if not most of you, to try and apply this. So they say it creates, geez, I can't speak tonight. It takes 21 days to create a habit in your lifestyle. And then it takes 90 days to become a lifestyle. So if you want to start eating healthy or go running, you have to go running for 21 days and your body will get used to it. Your mind will get used to it. The same as trading. Let's do 3, 4, whatever, I don't know what growth you want to go for. Yeah, you should definitely not be going more than, I personally think, 5%. That's a good day. Yeah, maybe Blaise goes 7, 8, 9% because he understands it. It works for him. He's experienced. The other experienced people. If you don't understand how it all works, wouldn't say not understand. Sorry. If it's, let's say you're not getting the results that you want to, you shouldn't be chasing it. You're just chasing it, and you're going to lose and lose and lose and lose. And you're going to blow your account. And you're going to get pissed off. You're going to leave, and then you're going to tell all your friends that Forex or HFX is shit, and Sean's a dickhead. I didn't mean that. The bottom one, you will never let this happen to your phone with you. I definitely don't. So don't let it happen to your brain or your body. Don't let it go flat. You should be training your brain every day. 10 minutes, 20 minutes in the shower. I'm sure a lot of you could tell me, I don't have time. I don't have time. Bullshit. If you want an hour extra, or whatever you want to do, get up an hour earlier. I'm a master of sleeping. I could sleep for 4 days straight. But like Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, sorry, one of them said, don't stop until you're done. Don't stop when you're tired. You have to keep going. If you want it, it's there for you. You know, the people that we follow, Matty Pips, Brandon Boyd, all these big people, Dr. Lee, Sean Maps, making millions. If you want it, it's there. It's just, something will trigger for you one day. You'll think, oh, right, okay, yeah, it's all fall into place for me now. It works. Please, the biggest thing I know I bang on about it, stop over trading. And please don't over leverage your accounts. So I won't keep you any longer. Peter, you there, mate? I'll mute you and I'll pass you over and make you host if I can. You can introduce yourself if people don't know what you do. Peter Moore. Can you hear me? Are you there, mate?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Yeah. How you doing?
Thanks.
Make host. Are you host now, mate?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Stop share. Fire away, mate.
There we go. Hopefully. Is that all?
Yeah, you're good.
With that. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jason. And hopefully, a bit what I'm going to say ties in really nicely what you've been saying. So there's hopefully something in it. I'll tell you just a little bit about me in a sec, but hopefully what we're going to look at just for a little while this evening is understanding a bit more about the sort of the psychology of what's going on in our strange things called brains when we're sitting in front of all these charts wondering whether to press the button or not, and suddenly we think, oh my god, why did I do that? And that's what I'm hopefully going to try and help explain a little bit about and help you understand what may be going on, and link into sort of what Jason's been saying, what we can do to help ourselves with that over time. So I worked in the NHS for 20 odd years, doing lots of stuff, but the lesser part of my career did a lot of work with individuals and groups and sort of systems, trying to help them change how they behaved and how they did things. And as a result of that, got quite into the sort of psychology and ended up doing a master's in business psychology, which is the sort of study of why we do stuff we do at work, to put it too technically. And then in 2018, we packed up and moved to France. So we live now down in the very south sort of France, in the city of Toulouse. And we have a tourist business, and that's how I got to know Sarah. And about 3-4 weeks ago, I sort of decided to get involved in the Forex and the HFX, and paid me money. And it's been a fabulous sort of few weeks, really. I think this group is amazing. I think people with Sean, Les, Sarah are absolutely brilliant in terms of the support, guidance and counsel that they provide. And I think there's something very special here. And I sort of said to them, look, I've done a bit of this. I'm nowhere an expert on trading. I'm still very much got me stabilizers on. But from reading a couple of bits and pieces and my background, there's something I might be able to add. So they said, with Jason, yeah, crack on. So hopefully I can help you understand a few bits of more today. So what I'm going to do. So I think Les uses this one, which is very much the sort of psychology of the market cycle. I think really the thing that this shows is there's an awful big long range of emotions that go through from your optimism, the euphoria, the anxiety. All of these are very strong and powerful emotions. And that's really quite a powerful thing, particularly when we're sort of individuals sitting in our studies or our little bits of the dining room or whatever on our own, and you get very much immersed in this and the ups and downs of not just the candles, but what's going on inside of us. And I think what we can have a look at is really try and help us understand why that is going on sometimes. But what I wanted to do was to start at probability, which is probably a bit strange for a sort of a bit of a talk on psychology and what's going on in our brain. And I think this is a really important part to sort of really understand. So many of you might know the game roulette, which is basically gambling, basing on bets. Every single go is a completely random event. The ball will land in one of those, and if you put your money on the right area, you're going to win or lose. So that's very much, we can then sort of look at that in terms of our binary options trading, red and black, as opposed to call and put. But the really key thing to understand when you look at a roulette table are the two bits there and there. There are two added green numbers there. And that's really, really important, because what that does, although every event is random, the house has got two extra numbers. So actually, over the course of time, the casino will win 20 out of 38, as opposed to the 18 out of 36 50-50 chance. And that gives them about 4% and a bit margin. And that's good enough for them. And they just consistently do that, and consistently all the way through. So every single event is a random event, but over time, the casino will always win because of those two little green numbers. Now, when we're looking at us and trading, we know that every trade is a new random event. That trade has never happened before, but we also know there is a degree of predictability from everything else, because we know that they're based on behaviors of others, things that happened before, repeating cycles, harmonics, etc., etc., etc. But what we've also got, I think particularly with RHS 543 and our 321, is we've got two green numbers. Because we've got these indicators and the support of everybody around us and the learning and development that we can do, we've got our own two green numbers. And if we stick to that belief in those numbers, then actually we want to keep going and keep being steady. And therefore that's where the predictability and the probability, we know if we start winning 7 out of 10, we will make a profit. We will start delivering the day-on-day growth, the 3%, 5% that we want. But that's all about being consistent. When we think about the market, we need to again remind ourselves and understand that the market is a load of people out there buying and selling and doing what they do as part of their business. The price is driven by the collective of these people. So it's driven by people's behaviors, which is good, because we know that people's behavior is very predictable. And that's why some of the shapes, the logic, the indicators and everything else really works. We can predict that if it's done this before, it will probably do it again. But everyone is also random. And this is a really important aspect when we look at how we manage different scenarios and think about and manage some of our trades and our emotions during the trades. Because it may be, all it takes is one person to do something differently for that to go up instead of down. One of the books, I think Jason, you also mentioned it, Trading in the Zone, is a very good story about there was a chairman who was of a big broker, a bank, that was brilliant at trading, but didn't understand all the indicators and all of that. They also had an analyst who was absolutely brilliant at the analyst, but couldn't trade and was always losing money. And they sat them together. And the analyst was sitting there talking very much about higher lows and lower highs and saying, okay, yeah, because of this, that and the other, we've got a predicted lower low here and the market will not go past there. So the chairman said, really? Okay. Picked up the phone, placed a £2 million broker order, and the price went flying through and flying down. Because we know that certain things can drive the market in an instant, but we know that also a lot of this is predictable. We have an edge. We've got our 2 green numbers. So the key to this, and I think Jason was talking about that there, is that consistency. Doing it over and over again, picking the right trades, picking the right number of trades, and making sure that we're delivering it all the time. When you look at those big ones, you know, Matty Pips and all of that, they're not doing very complicated, you know, often complicated. They're doing one thing, continually doing it, and they're continually doing it well, and that's what begins to deliver results. It's not necessarily about bravado or heroicism. If anybody's got sort of questions or thoughts, please do sort of lob in or come through. But I'll sort of go through some of this. So we're sort of understanding a bit of consistency. What we need to think about is this thing called emotional detachment. And when we looked at that original psychology of the market space, it describes some of these really strong, really powerful emotions that we go through. And how do we actually understand some of that to then manage that within us to get this consistency and this emotional detachment, which gives us an objective trading and a mindset that allows us to operate in an objective way rather than suddenly flip to an emotional way that then makes us do very strange things. So for example, what happens when we lose? Well, if we're looking at this as a very objective and rational way, we'd look at our strategy. We'd look at our HF543 indicator, review that trade and say, right, did I actually follow it? Were the indicators right? Was it in the right? Did I have divergence, etc.? If no, if that was right, well, that was one of those things. Shit happens, I'll get on with it. Or maybe I'll actually sit there and think, maybe I need to think about that. And was that candle went in the right way or not? And you feed back and you learn. And again, Jason was talking about every day we want to learn. Every day we should be getting better and better at what we do. However, what we often do is get really angry. And then suddenly we're into a whole different set of emotions that then seem to take over us. And why is this? Well, to understand a bit of that, we need to think about what some of these words that we often look at and what's driving us and what's going on in our head. What we often have is these things called values, beliefs, and attitudes. And these things are the things that are set inside of us that really end up helping us and shaping how we do things and how we react. So our values are very much what we think is important, what's our sort of core things in us that sort of drive who we are and what we think is important. Our beliefs are a bit sort of shallower, if you like, and they're things about, well, what do you actually think is true? What do you think is true in the moment? What do I believe is right for me? What do I believe is about this situation? And then our attitude is based on our values and our beliefs. This is the way you act, or this is how we react. And if we talk about mindset quite a lot, our mindset is very much around looking at what we believe, what we think is true, influences how we react. And that can be a very positive thing. So when we look at some of the sort of strong work in terms of positive mindsets, growth mindsets, that allows us to drive forward in a positive way, but it can also be in a negative way and a self-deprecating, self-doubt and all these other sort of things. But our mindset is very much built on this sort of thing called beliefs and attitude, and stem back to the values. But what is really, really important, so if a little bit of an example, you may think a very strong value that you hold is about protecting the planet, and you think protecting the planet is important. Therefore, you believe that everyone should recycle. That's what you really believe is a fundamental truth, because you can't see why you wouldn't. Therefore, you look at somebody maybe that's not recycling or putting the rubbish out and not recycling or putting it in the wrong bin, and you get angry at that. So from a calm person, you can actually get angry at something because of these beliefs and because of these values. what's really important when we start thinking about this is what can we do about it? What can we shape about it? And this is particularly important, is our beliefs, because this is really has a strong ability to influence our attitudes and how we can behave. So we can actually drive what we do in our success. So when we look at some of the sort of very strong, very important motivational people like Bob Proctor, and some of the other ones, and some of the sort of things that Jason's been talking about, with believing in and having your goals on a daily, monthly, yearly, lifetime basis, that is really about shaping and informing and driving what it is we believe. And if we believe in something, then we expect it to happen. If you start expecting to happen, then we can actually expect these things to happen. So our beliefs are really, really, really important in actually shaping our mindset and also in shaping our reality. So we've got all this fairly simple. It looks, when you put it down on the paper, we sort of what we think is important and what we think is true, and therefore how I react. But we sit there in front of our computer, we've got genuine belief in our strategy. We know that I'm just looking for 4 trades today, 4 winning trades. That will give me my 4%, and off I go again, and I can shut the laptop and it'll have a great day. But that often doesn't happen. Something happens, something clicks in our heads, and suddenly you're thinking, why did I do that? Why did I go after that candle? That was nowhere near anything that might, the indicator wasn't right. I just don't quite understand why I've done that. Now, what we can look at is probably trying to help you understand why that might be going on. Because unfortunately, in your head, you're not alone. And this isn't a bad thing or a scary thing. We have our human. This is us. This is the bit we generally recognize. All of this bit I'm going through is by Professor Steve Peters, and it's a model based on a lot of research looking at blood flow and all of that, about what is going on in all these different bits of our brain. And he did a lot of work with the high performance elite Olympic teams, particularly the cycling teams. So this is sort of his model to try and help people understand what's going on in these complex bits of our brain, which hopefully I can use to explain a bit to you. So we have our human bit, which is what we recognize, our day-to-day, that's us. But we also have our chimp. Now our chimp is still in the jungle. This is from when we were chimps, and the jungle code and the jungle reactions. So they're very much looking for danger, working and understanding in terms of their emotional responses, very much looking at fight, flight or freeze. And the chimp is very much the first one to respond, particularly if there's danger. The chimp is not a bad, but they can well be paranoid, they can be irrational, and they often jump to conclusions. And the other part of the chimp is that it works at 5 times the speed as our human brain does. So willpower does not often work with the chimp. And this is where you suddenly feel that somebody takes over you. It's not a bad thing. This is partly about understanding this model and understanding that this is okay. There is this part of your brain that will take over and result in you thinking, God, why did I do that? And we cannot control our chimp, but we can do a lot to manage it. And that's when we start to understanding it and moving on. And this can be really important when we're sitting there in trading, understanding how do we make this consistency and objective trading. We are able to pacify it. We can talk to it and calm it down. It's a bit like a child. For those of you who have children, we know that that's not always easy. So when we look at that, we've got our chimp. So that's the other part of our brain that some kicks in and we think, oh my God, where did all that emotion, where did that come from? We also have a third part. So in terms of the actual parts of the brain, we've got our human, which is the part of the frontal lobe. So these are all clearly linked to specific physical parts of the brain. And studies show the blood flow going from one place to the other when different scenarios and people are put in different areas and their emotions are kicking in. So the limbic is the part of the brain where the chimp lives. as I just said, we also have a third part, and we have our computer. The computer is the part of our brain that runs in the background, basically, and has all the automated responses, and they're positive and negative. The classic one of this is learning to drive. When we all start learning to drive, it's the human doing it, and that's all very complicated. We can't change gear, indicate, do all these things at the same time and not concentrate and look where we're going and think about that. But over time, we get better at it, we practice it, and it becomes automatic. So there's the muscle memory, both in the brain and the physical bit. And now when we all drive, we can just do it and we don't even think. That's because now our computer is driving. And that's why we sort of go, oh, I don't even remember getting here. So our computer is a very powerful, and it actually operates at 20 times the speed in terms of the human. So we have three parts of our brain, and they all work independently. And the problem we get is when they start clashing and having and arguing, particularly between the chimp and the human.
Peter, can I ask you a question? So
Yeah, absolutely.
in regards to what you're talking about now, it looks like it's split into three. Is there a way, if possible, to train this to become better, faster, more sharp, if you like? And does it affect, is this the sort of way that affects dementia? Because I guess the lack of education, well, not education, but training the brain, I guess, isn't it? It's lack of use.
Yes, I mean, there are, this sort of focuses on three parts. And this sort of is the first layer of this sort of model, and it goes much deeper in terms of you've actually got sort of 7/8 parts of the brain, and things like the physical, like we're talking about dementia, is when certain parts of the brain have been affected and are stopping working in a particular way. Similarly, there's examples of when people have either had sort of fairly horrific injuries to the brain, or things like a stroke, and certain parts of the brain stop working, and that's when we start seeing people whose whole personality changed. So there's one of the very first examples of this was a man who worked on the railways, and a bolt literally went through his head and took out a big part of his frontal part of his brain, so the human bit. And afterwards he was much more emotional, he got angry all the time, he was really cross, and basically his chimp, so the limbic part of his brain, was running most of his life. So yes, you're absolutely right, these are different parts. But also what we can do, and this is the bit we can train ourselves to do more things, get the computer to do more things. We can train ourselves to work with and manage the chimp. So there are lots and lots of ways and techniques that we can use this model to help us become more balanced, more, not necessarily less emotional, because emotions aren't a bad thing, but make sure those emotions are much more controlled and balanced, and we're in control of what we do. So yeah, no, absolutely. And this is the key bit when you start thinking this is actually about physical parts of our brain, and when they're working in harmony, they're great. It's when they start literally fighting, and the chimp starts fighting with that. And how it sort of generally works is we get a message, so something comes into our conscious, whether it's an individual or an event or something that we're forced to react to. If there's any hint of danger or perceived danger, then suddenly the chimp will kick in. And as we said, he operates at 5 times quicker than the human. So he gets in there, decides, is there the potential or possible danger? If so, he will then look at the computer and say, is there anything in our past experience, knowledge, or database, if you like, that helps me understand how I should react to this? If there is, then he uses that and then will react. But as we said, the reaction is often very emotional driven, very black and white, no sense of rational or logic behind it, and very much based on these really sort of jungle approaches of fight, flight, response. If there isn't necessarily,
sorry, so in that situation then, so if you kind of use the example of fighting to someone that's like a trained or skilled fighter, then this would be the kind of, if you're not trained, then the chimp in a sense would be going nuts. But then if you are trained, you would then use other parts of the brain to kind of then reassess the situation, and you might not even need to get into the fight in the first place, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's that. Yeah, the chimp really runs on the ego. That's really embedding. That's a really sort of chimp behaviour. So, as you said, the sort of, you know, fight after the pub versus the sort of professional fighter. Actually, the professional fighter has done all the training, has done the work, and actually it's the computer doing much of that, and therefore it's running in a much more logical and assessed way rather than a purely emotional way, which is lots of hay swingers after 10 pints. So absolutely, and this is this process that we can help understand what's going on in our brain, and literally the awareness of having these different things going on in our brain is quite a good thing, because then you don't go, God, I'm an idiot, why did I do that? Because then you can realize actually that was my chimp doing that, and we can work on it. So absolutely, this is that process in terms of working through the autopilots and everything else. So I'll sort of just touch on it in a sec. So yeah, the human very much then takes over. The human is quite slow and has to think things through. They will look at the computer. Is there anything that can help me here? If so, great, and I'll then therefore react. But as you just sort of said there, Sean, there's another sort of set really. There is the driving, or the sort of the trained fighter, as you said, and this is where we want to think about is actually the computer has these positive autopilots that run these things for us. Now, if you think about trading, that's probably therefore when we just sort of start to think about and recognize and know that that setup looks right. So very much you're sort of, you know, in the morning, you know, sometimes you would say, oh, not quite explain why that looks right, but it just looks right. And that's really this is where we want to be. That's that sort of autopilot. We don't know, and we start, you know, and you start looking at some of the elite ones and they talk about their shapes and the W's and all. Yes, there's some science behind that, but actually that's all starting to run in the background. So the computer has different types of autopilots. You've got autopilots, which are these positive things. So these are good things that we're taking over and are programmable. So we can amend and develop our autopilots. We've got gremlins, which are negative things that are programmable. We'll sort of give a couple of examples in a sec. And there's sort of ways and beliefs, and lots of these are these values and beliefs and things like that. So they're set in, these aren't set in stone, and we can amend, and there are ways we can reprogram ourselves, if you like. You've also got these things called goblins, without getting too Lord of the Rings or anything on this. And these are the really embedded things that we can't change. They were probably embedded by the time we were 8. And we can blame our parents for that. And there's the whole big thing with Steve Peters is how we treat children. And the classic one he uses about a goblin is the child comes home from work, from school, and says, "Oh, look at this wonderful picture," and we all go, "Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Your picture is really amazing. I must put it on the fig so everybody can see it." And what he's saying is that's a huge goblin that the majority of people who live in the Western world have, because what you've said is you're valuing the thing that the person did, the child did, rather than what valuing what the child is actually and what they are and who they are. So there's these things that get embedded in us, and all that stuff we worry about as parents is probably all true, I'm afraid. So these are sort of the computer bit, and I think these are quite important when we start thinking about the trading and what we can do about this. And again, when we talk about mindset, the mindset is very much how these things are interacting with each other at any given moment. As I said, we've got a broader sort of talk about mindset in terms of some of the things that Jason said, and the growth mindset and various other mindsets like the Snow White mindset. But very much here, we're also talking about in the moment, how are we feeling? How is the chimp balanced? Is the chimp tired? Is the computer taking control? Where are we? And this can sort of change over the day. So an example of that very much is if you're on your way to work, or you're on your way to a job and somebody cuts you off, you have to brake, and suddenly that's it, the chimp kicks in. Right, oh, they did that on purpose, I'm going to get him. Right, and you follow him out and you chase him and you keep going and you go, oh, this is so unfair, he's going to... And off he goes, and then he pulls off. He goes, "Oh, let's go!" And eventually he gets to work, and you're just in a horrendous mood all day, and you want to tell everybody about this absolute idiot that cut you up. And rather than maybe what the human would say is actually, look, this bloke's a bit of an idiot, and he's got a bit of a silly car, and actually this didn't really impact me. And if I just sit here, he can drive off, and I'll just carry on my day. But the chimp keeps going and keeps going all day. And actually, until you get back home and you talk to your wife, or your husband, or whoever, and they say, well, why don't you calm down? And by this stage, you've had a terrible day, everything's gone wrong, but the chimp is actually absolutely exhausted because they've been operating all day, and suddenly the chimp gives up. The human comes in, and you suddenly go, yeah, I don't know, really. Why did I do that? And this is just showing this sort of how your mindset, the battle between these can be affected, and how we can probably... awareness of this could really help us understand what we can do about it. So what I was going to do, sort of fairly brief, was just take a few sort of trading examples and see where they might think. I've got a few ideas here about, just as I've been developing this in a few weeks, but if anybody else has any other sort of ideas or things that we can help each other with in terms of managing and helping us with this, then please sort of jump in, really. But I just sort of got some classic scenarios that probably we've all sat in there. So the first one is that we sat there and we've just got what we thought was a really good setup. We've clicked the button, right at the end it's just dropped right down or spiked right up. So this is that classic scenario, really about revenge trading. How do you react next to that? Now, if the chimp kicks in, you've got this fight, flight, freeze response. I'm going to fight. I'm going to take it on. And what we often do is sort of anthropomorphize or personalize the broker. I'm going to get them. They spiked me. They did this sort of thing. Oh, that's it. And we chase it. And we click that button because I think that's going to go. And I'm going to get that broker, and I'm going to get them next time. And you can see this is real classic chimp kicking in, because they see it very as a personalized thing and effect on them. Or actually, the alternative is if we can look at ourselves, support ourselves to understand that the computer may kick in with an autopilot that just says, stuff happens, one of those random moves, let's wait for the next good setup. And I think this is really the important bit when we look back right at the beginning, what I was talking about the probability, the setups, the strategy that we've got. We know that it will give us over time, if we consistently apply it, the success rates that we need. It will give us our 3% a day. Well, we don't have to chase it. Yes, within making those 3%, we might have 1 or 2 losses that we need to sort of look at. But if we start chasing them and doing it emotionally, then we'll make silly decisions and we'll suddenly have blown 3 or 4 losses by chasing that candle all the way down. So that's very much one example in terms of revenge trading, and where if we can help ourselves, particularly with certain things to reinforce that, so that may be a really understanding and reinforcing of our belief that we have an edge. If we stick to our edge, if we stick to our plan, then we will deliver the growth that we need and we want. Another example, potentially the fear of missing a trade. We're all sitting there, it looks kind of right. Oh, the candle's sort of nearly there. Oh, I'm not quite sure. And this is another classic chimp kicks in, an emotional support. One of the key things a chimp often says is, what if? What if this happens? What if that happens? And this is very much in terms of the chimp and its emotional response to you, the sort of paranoia. Oh, if you don't get in now, you're going to miss that one, and you're not going to get all of these things that you suddenly feel yourself thinking, and you think, oh, and suddenly you press the button and you go, why did I do that? And again, what we want to do to get that objectivity in that emotional detachment is think about how we can program our computer just to reinforce it. And this can come down to, you know, having a bit of paper on the wall that has this stuff written on, so you're constantly thinking it, constantly looking at it. So yes, there will always be another setup. We know that. It is better to miss out than to lose. Particularly if, you know, you're doing Bitcoin at 50%, you know that you've got to win 2 more to get out on the loss. And I can learn from this today. I look at that. That wasn't right. I wasn't going to, you know, that wasn't quite in the setup that I know will deliver that momentum that will give me that trade. This is one thing I've just tried doing, is just breaking down. This is sort of the 5-4-3 for me, is to sort of break it down into different bits that are, it's almost like a checklist, which sounds quite laborsome when you're first doing it, but it's just, again, that driving mirror signal maneuver. And this is how I sort of tried to do it, and tried to then use this to sort of even audit those trades. I put that little bit in the middle about trade reversals, because I always found myself trying to chase them going down rather than chasing the breaker return. So again, that's how I think I'm beginning to look at that, but others can help. Others are winning more. We've got all of the posting of all our results, and it's only just, and I think Jason said this right at the beginning, others are winning more. Oh, and this again, classic emotional response. You've either got the ego, which says, oh, I've got to do something better than them, or you've got the self-doubt, which says, oh, I'm not doing this really well. I don't think I can do this. Or they're all doing much better than me. I'm only doing 2% a day. They're doing 10%. And again, what we want really is that much more computer-driven response. I've got my plan. My daily growth will deliver what I need, and I know my success rate. And this again comes down to, this is a bit of a business. If we want to do this as a business, we need to sort of be a bit business-like. You know, we have a projected plan. We've got what growth I need, I am happy with, and what I will deliver, as Jason said at the top. And also auditing, you know, just knowing what your success rates, because all of this really can help you reinforce. You know, you've got your graph. My graph is going up. By Christmas, I'm up to my 4,000 or 5,000, whatever that. If I just stick to this day on day on day, then I will get there. And I think these sort of simple tools to help reinforce what we want, help us reprogram our computer. So analysing our trades, having that information going, actually, look, I have one. I am winning 80%. That's okay. Therefore, I don't have to chase that trade. And if so-and-so has just won 15 trades on the rally, and that's good for them, but actually all I need is my 4 trades for today. I can close the laptop and go. So I think there's lots of little things we can do with things on our walls and doing some analysis that could really reinforce this. And just sort of briefly, because I'm sort of clear on the time, rollover, the rollover button. This is just an example really potentially of how we can put Gremlin into our computer, because what we can look at there, that setup looks pretty good. I'm on the 3-minute. I think, yeah, it's nearly there, but I'm not quite sure. But all I can actually always roll over. And actually what that can then begin to do is actually you're starting to look at setups in a different way, and you're not looking for the perfect one and waiting for it to come, but you're looking at others, and suddenly you're rolling over. And again, if you start analysing it, out of all of those rollovers, how many did you actually win? And if it's less than, you know, then is that actually right? And this is how we can get ourselves down rabbit holes, I think, in terms of we've got a simple approach. If we can make sure in our heads we're really clear about what our interpretation of 543 or 321, because that's always going to be slightly different. We're all going to do it and look at it in a slightly different way. But if we can objectify it, write it down, however your head works, then I think it'd be really, you know, that's a really good way of reinforcing some of this, and knowing that it's all about consistency, sticking to our strategy, sticking to what works for you, and delivering your own plan. And the key really is practice does make perfect. Practice matters. This is the learning to drive bit. Look at your strategy. If you do bang out your 100 trades, you know, on demo or for 1%, that's your programming your autopilot. Suddenly you'll begin to start seeing things that you didn't see before. some of the sort of big people, the Matty Pips and all that, just say they just see winning trades. That's not because they're necessarily gifted or amazing. They've just done it so many times that they're actually just seeing it, and that's your computer really kicking in. And you start following your strategy. You know, some of us often watch Les. Somebody he just sees it, but that's because he's done hundreds of trades and he's researched and he's practiced. And it's, you know, that's where our computer brains really kick in, and I think that's where we want our trading to be, because that's when it becomes objective and consistent. The only thing to have a consider when we look back and analyze, hindsight is always a tricky thing when we re-look at a trade, because actually you go, oh, I should have got that one because look, it's gone down and down. But what we want is knowing that that's going to go down, knowing that momentum is there. So I think hindsight can be a bit dangerous when we do this sort of auditing and that, because we actually want those setups that we knew were going to go down, not the ones that just now in hindsight look like have gone down. And I think that's one of the things that's clicked with me the last week or so, is that, you know, it's what is it that makes it know it's got to go down rather than the ones that just went. So that's sort of where I'd got to. So I think there's a lot of this in terms of this reinforcement. It could be really important for us to help us pacify our chimp brain when it wants to kick in, understanding that our chimp brain is there, but and helping sort of program the computer. So if we are looking at, I think, consistency and objective, emotionally detached trading, I think hopefully this has helped a little bit with awareness of the chimp in you, however weird and slight strange that might seem. But knowing that that's going on helps us explain why we suddenly do these random strange things. Consider how we can pacify the moment. So sometimes we need to just step away from the trading to allow everything to calm down. If we feel that, you know, that emotional stuff kicking in, just step back, walk away for a minute, let him, it's called giving the chimp a banana. Awareness of the computer, I think, is really, really important for us. Understanding that we can put gremlins, and we've got gremlins that make us do things negatively, if you like. Understanding that we can develop these autopilots, and that's what practice and reinforcement may be about, and some of the analysis. So reinforcing whatever sort of method works for you, whether it's a diagram or numbers or however it was, reinforcing our strategy, our consistency, reinforcing our 2 green numbers, knowing your system, knowing how you interpret it. You know, if those of you watch Kaya versus Les, you know, they're using exactly the same set of indicators, but in a subtly different way. We all do that. If we can summarize that in your own way, that's, I think, a really powerful thing. And analysis, I think, is a really important bit. Looking at what trades we're doing, and that helps us reinforce that. Oh, I maybe actually need to bang the button a bit more for my 1 cent trades to get me going. Or actually, look, I am doing 70% win, and that will deliver what I need to deliver, and that's what I want to do. So yeah, hopefully that's quite a lot, but hopefully it may have helped people understand some strange things that our brains do.
Can I just take you back quickly, Peter, to where the brain divides into 3 sections? What would you say, in your professional opinion, is it possible? How long would it actually typically take to train that, or is everybody different?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's chimp has a slightly sort of different personality, and there is sort of a male-female difference in there. But there's 2 things in terms of training, really. I think there's the practice bit, and that's the sort of things you were saying. I think you were saying as well that, you know, we're doing these things also. But there are ways that you can then first identify your gremlins, and if you can identify it, then it's just a way of, and this is just literally, I think it's awareness of this stuff and how you behave could then help you stop yourself doing things, and over time you can reprogram. And that isn't over months and years. You can do this reasonably quickly, depending on the nature of your gremlin or your and what you want to achieve. I think the most powerful thing about this is just an awareness of this is what's actually going on. My brain isn't as simple necessarily as what I thought it would, and actually that's quite a good thing, because that explains I don't have to beat myself up quite so much because it's the chimp, but it is my chimp and I have a responsibility to manage it.
Right, fantastic. Has anybody else got any questions before we can wrap it up? Thanks very much, Peter. I really enjoyed that. It's very interesting. I think we can do a bit more of this, because it does obviously indulge deeper into the mind and how we, like you say, why we do them stupid or sometimes not stupid things, which obviously affects how we trade. Has anybody got any questions, guys? Or I'm sure Peter or myself won't mind if you message one of us if you've got any further questions. But so far, we've got any questions, or I won't keep you long. We've been going just an hour exactly, so I'll stop the recording.